The distress signal came from deep within the farthest reaches of space. It was a message full of desperation, a cry for help that echoed across the stars. The alien race, the Xarathians, were known for their advanced technology and vast empire. They had long been a powerful presence in the galaxy, but now they were in trouble. Their homeworld was under siege, and they were fighting a war they couldn't win. They sent out their SOS, hoping someone, anyone, would hear it. But what they didn't know was that their message was about to reach a force they had never anticipated. On Earth, the message was intercepted by a high-tech monitoring station. Commander Jane Foster, the leader of Earth's Deathworlder fleet, was the first to hear the signal. She had seen many distress calls in her career, but something about this one felt different. The fear in the voices of the Xarathians was palpable. They spoke of an overwhelming enemy, one that was too strong for them to face alone. The message was filled with panic, and every word seemed to scream for survival. "We need help. If you can hear this, please, we are dying. We are being destroyed." The call went silent for a brief moment, then continued. "If anyone can help us, please respond. Our fleet is gone. Our cities are falling. We are the last of our kind. Help us." Jane listened carefully, her brow furrowing as she processed the message. She had fought in countless wars, but she had never faced an enemy like this. The Xarathians were not weak. They were known for their strength and their advanced weaponry. So, for them to be pleading for help, it was clear that whatever was attacking them was far beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. She stood up from her command chair and turned to her officers, her voice firm and commanding. "Prepare the fleet. We're answering that call." The crew of the Deathworlder fleet moved quickly, knowing the gravity of the situation. Earth's warriors were a special breed, battle-hardened soldiers who thrived on combat and survival. Their ships were equipped with the most advanced weaponry humanity had ever developed. The Deathworlders weren't just soldiers, they were the ultimate force in the galaxy, trained to fight and survive in the harshest conditions imaginable. But despite their strength, Jane knew that this mission would be different. They were going into an unknown situation, and the threat the Xarathians spoke of could be far more dangerous than anything they had faced before. As the fleet prepared for departure, Jane received a report from her intelligence team. They had analyzed the SOS signal and traced its origin to a distant star system, far beyond Earth's reach. The journey would take days, even weeks. The fleet's engines roared to life, and the massive ships began their journey into the unknown. The crew had no idea what awaited them, but one thing was certain: they were going to help the Xarathians, whether they were prepared for what lay ahead or not. During the long journey, the tension on the ships was palpable. The Deathworlders were used to danger, but the uncertainty of this mission left even the most experienced soldiers on edge. They had faced many threats before: alien invasions, hostile planets, and brutal creatures. But this was different. This wasn't a fight for survival on Earth. This was a fight to protect an alien race they knew nothing about, from an enemy that was still a mystery. Commander Jane Foster spent much of her time in her private quarters, preparing herself mentally for the battle that lay ahead. She reviewed the information on the Xarathians, trying to learn as much as she could about their culture, their strengths, and their weaknesses. She needed to be ready for anything. The ship's AI kept her updated on the progress of their journey, and she spent hours going over tactical plans, trying to figure out the best way to approach the situation. Meanwhile, the rest of the fleet was preparing in their own way. The Deathworlders were a close-knit group, each one relying on the others to stay alive in the harshest environments. They trained together, fought together, and had each other's backs. But the uncertainty of this mission weighed heavily on them. The Xarathians had asked for help, but there was no guarantee that Earth's forces would be welcomed when they arrived. There was always the chance that the aliens would see them as a threat, especially if their homeworld was on the brink of destruction. The distress signal came from deep within the farthest reaches of space. It was a message full of desperation, a cry for help that echoed across the stars. The alien race, the Xarathians, were known for their advanced technology and vast empire. They had long been a powerful presence in the galaxy, but now they were in trouble. Their homeworld was under siege, and they were fighting a war they couldn't win. They sent out their SOS, hoping someone, anyone, would hear it. But what they didn't know was that their message was about to reach a force they had never anticipated. On Earth, the message was intercepted by a high-tech monitoring station. Commander Jane Foster, the leader of Earth's Deathworlder fleet, was the first to hear the signal. She had seen many distress calls in her career, but something about this one felt different. The fear in the voices of the Xarathians was palpable. They spoke of an overwhelming enemy, one that was too strong for them to face alone. The message was filled with panic, and every word seemed to scream for survival. "We need help. If you can hear this, please, we are dying. We are being destroyed." The call went silent for a brief moment, then continued. "If anyone can help us, please respond. Our fleet is gone. Our cities are falling. We are the last of our kind. Help us." Jane listened carefully, her brow furrowing as she processed the message. She had fought in countless wars, but she had never faced an enemy like this. The Xarathians were not weak. They were known for their strength and their advanced weaponry. So for them to be pleading for help, it was clear that whatever was attacking them was far beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. She stood up from her command chair and turned to her officers, her voice firm and commanding. "Prepare the fleet. We're answering that call." The crew of the Deathworlder fleet moved quickly, knowing the gravity of the situation. Earth's warriors were a special breed. Battle-hardened soldiers who thrived on combat and survival. Their ships were equipped with the most advanced weaponry humanity had ever developed. The Deathworlders weren't just soldiers, they were the ultimate force in the galaxy, trained to fight and survive in the harshest conditions imaginable. But despite their strength, Jane knew that this mission would be different. They were going into an unknown situation, and the threat the Xarathians spoke of could be far more dangerous than anything they had faced before. As the fleet prepared for departure, Jane received a report from her intelligence team. They had analyzed the SOS signal and traced its origin to a distant star system, far beyond Earth's reach. The journey would take days, even weeks. The fleet's engines roared to life, and the massive ships began their journey into the unknown. The crew had no idea what awaited them, but one thing was certain: they were going to help the Xarathians, whether they were prepared for what lay ahead or not. During the long journey, the tension on the ships was palpable. The Deathworlders were used to danger, but the uncertainty of this mission left even the most experienced soldiers on edge. They had faced many threats before: alien invasions, hostile planets, and brutal creatures. But this was different. This wasn't a fight for survival on Earth. This was a fight to protect an alien race they knew nothing about, from an enemy that was still a mystery. Commander Jane Foster spent much of her time in her private quarters, preparing herself mentally for the battle that lay ahead. She reviewed the information on the Xarathians, trying to learn as much as she could about their culture, their strengths, and their weaknesses. She needed to be ready for anything. The ship's AI kept her updated on the progress of their journey, and she spent hours going over tactical plans, trying to figure out the best way to approach the situation. Meanwhile, the rest of the fleet was preparing in their own way. The Deathworlders were a close-knit group, each one relying on the others to stay alive in the harshest environments. They trained together, fought together, and had each other's backs. But the uncertainty of this mission weighed heavily on them. The Xarathians had asked for help, but there was no guarantee that Earth's forces would be welcomed when they arrived. There was always the chance that the aliens would see them as a threat, especially if their homeworld was on the brink of destruction. The Deathworlder fleet came out of hyperspace near the Xarathian system, and what they saw was worse than anything they expected. Space was full of burning debris. Dead ships floated, broken and lifeless, while fires still flickered across their wreckage. The once beautiful Xarothian homeworld below was scared. Huge black clouds hung over cities. Some places were just craters now, completely destroyed. Commander Jane Foster stood silently on the bridge of the lead ship, the Iron Vow. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched behind her back. She had seen battles. She had seen what war could do. But this was destruction beyond reason. "Scan everything," she ordered. "I want to know who did this, and I want to know if any Xarothians are still alive." Her crew moved fast. Radar, deep scans, emergency beacons, every system went online. Across the fleet, Earth's best minds searched the ruins for signs of life. Finally, after a long moment, a faint signal came through. It was broken and weak, but it was there. "This is Prime Advisor Kel of Xaroth. If you can hear this, we are still here, but not for long." The message came with coordinates, buried deep under the surface of one of the last standing cities. Jane didn't waste time. She sent a squad down right away, led by Captain Ilias Monroe, a veteran of Earth's toughest wars. His team of Deathworlders were ready for anything, and they dropped into the ruins with weapons armed and eyes sharp. When the team landed, they found what was left of a once great city. Towering buildings had been turned into melted steel and rubble. Roads were full of broken machines and bodies. The enemy had come through like a storm, leaving nothing behind. But the signal led them underground. After clearing out a collapsed tunnel, they broke through into a hidden chamber, guarded by energy shields and sealed doors. Inside, a small group of Xarothians huddled together, injured, starving, and full of fear. They flinched when they saw the humans. But then one of the aliens, tall and thin with bright green skin and tired eyes, stepped forward. "You answered," he whispered. "We didn't think anyone would." Captain Monroe stepped closer and lowered his weapon. "You called for help, and Earth listens." The alien's name was Prime Advisor Kale. He explained what had happened. A new enemy had come from beyond the known galaxy, a species called the Varnak. No one had seen them before. They didn't talk. They didn't demand anything. They just attacked. Silent, cold, and deadly. Their ships used technology no one could understand. Their weapons tore through shields like paper. "They didn't want to conquer us," Hale said. "They wanted us gone." Cal's voice broke when he told them how millions had died in the first wave, how the Xarothian fleets, once so proud, were wiped out within hours, how every call for help was ignored, until Earth. Back on the Iron Vow, Jane listened to the report. Her face grew darker with every word. "They killed civilians, hospitals, refugees," she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Yes, Commander," Elias confirmed. "They left nothing alive. This wasn't war, it was slaughter." Jane didn't wait. "Bring Kale and the survivors aboard. Get them medical help, and prep the fleet. If those things are still here, we hunt them." As the Deathworlder fleet scanned the system, they picked up movement near one of the outer planets. Strange signals, too quiet for normal ships. Jane narrowed her eyes. "That's them," she said. "They're still here." She ordered the fleet to split, half to protect the rescued Xarothians, the other half to move on the enemy. As the ships moved through space, the enemy finally revealed itself. A dozen black ships came out of the shadows, long and sharp like knives. Their hulls shimmered like they were made of smoke and metal. No lights, no flags, no warnings. And then they fired. Bright red beams shot through space, aiming straight at the human ships. But Earth's fleet didn't fall like the Xarothians. Shields went up. Cannons returned fire. The first battle between Earth and the Varnak had begun. The enemy moved fast, too fast. But Earth's fleet had trained for speed, for chaos. They adapted quickly, turning their ships and countering attacks with smart tactics. The Deathworlder gunners locked onto weak spots in the enemy hulls, and tore through them. One Varnak ship exploded in a silent fireball. The humans didn't cheer. They focused. Another ship was crippled, drifting without power. And then something strange happened. The remaining Varnak ships didn't retreat. They just vanished, blinking out of space like ghosts. "Where did they go?" Jane asked. "No trace," her officer said. "They just disappeared." Jane looked at the stars. They were watching, testing us. Her voice turned cold. "Well, now they've seen what Earth can do." The first battle was over, but everyone knew it wasn't the last. The Varnak had disappeared into deep space, leaving nothing behind but silence and wreckage. But that silence was not peace. Commander Jane Foster knew it. Every instinct in her body told her the enemy was not gone. They were watching, waiting, planning. She stood on the bridge of the Iron Vow, staring at the dark space beyond the viewport, her eyes sharp like a predator. "They vanished too clean," she said, "like they wanted us to follow, or let our guard down." The rest of the fleet was on high alert. Engineers repaired damage from the first clash. Pilots sat ready in fighter bays. The rescued Xerothians were under heavy guard, recovering aboard Earth's hospital ships. One of them, Prime Advisor Kale, insisted on speaking with Jane again. Kale stood in front of her, his face pale but firm. "I've seen those ships before," he said quietly. "Not just in our skies. In our records, ancient records." Jane leaned forward. "What kind of records?" Kale explained. 1,000 years ago, the Xerothians had legends of shadow ships, vessels that appeared before great disasters. Back then, people thought it was myth. But now, he believed it was history repeating. The Varnak had been here before, and each time, Kale whispered, civilizations vanished. Jane's face hardened. Then this time, they picked the wrong galaxy. Back in space, Earth's ships searched the area around the Xerothian system. One patrol group sent a probe into a nearby asteroid field. It didn't return. Then, another scout ship reported strange energy readings, like echoes, shadows of ships that were there and then gone. Commander Jane sent out orders. Prepare a recon mission, small, fast, and quiet. Captain Ilias Monroe was chosen again. His squad was the best at finding things others couldn't. They boarded a stealth ship, Silent Fang, and flew straight into the asteroid field. The place felt wrong the moment they entered. Asteroids floated slowly, but they weren't still. They shifted, as if something invisible disturbed them. There, one of Elias's officers pointed to a screen. Movement at the edge. They crept closer, hiding behind rocks. And then they saw it. A Varnak ship, completely still. Dark. Not dead. Sleeping. Around it, 5 more. All silent. The fleet was hiding in the asteroid field like sharks in deep water, but they were powered down, giving off almost no signal. "Ghost fleet," Elias whispered. "They're not gone. They're nesting." He sent the data back to Iron Vow, and Jane's eyes went wide. "They're cloaked. Recharging, maybe, waiting for the right moment to strike again." She didn't waste time. "Tell the fleet, battle formation. If they're sleeping, we're waking them up." Earth's war fleet moved fast, but not fast enough. As they closed in on the asteroid field, the Ghost fleet woke up. One by one, the Varnak ships lit up, red lights across their hulls, engines humming with power. They didn't speak. They didn't warn. They just attacked. The asteroid field turned into a battlefield. The Varnak moved like shadows, darting between rocks, using the terrain as cover. Earth's ships had to fly carefully, dodging both enemy fire and floating debris. Explosions lit up space as the fleets clashed. Fighters danced between broken asteroids, launching missiles and dodging beams. Elias and his team aboard Silent Fang joined the fight. They moved from the shadows and took out one Varnak ship from behind, blasting its engines before it could react. But the enemy numbers were growing. More Varnock ships appeared from the far side of the field, awakened by the battle. "We need a way to trap them," Jane said, "or we'll be picked apart." Then Cale contacted her. He had an idea. "There's an old Sarathian weapon," he said. "A gravitational spike. We used it long ago to collapse mining fields. If we detonate it in the right spot, we can crush part of the field and trap half their fleet." Jane looked at her team. "Can we do it?" "Yes," her science officer replied. "But someone has to fly it into position, manually." A silence fell on the bridge. Elias's voice came through the comms. "I'll do it." Before Jane could argue, Silent Fang broke formation and flew straight into the asteroid core, dodging fire. They carried the gravitational spike in their cargo bay. If they got it right, they'd bury the enemy under tons of rock and debris. Inside Silent Fang, Elias flew with steady hands. Alarms blared. The ship shook as Varnock weapons grazed their hull. But he kept going. His co-pilot screamed when an asteroid barely missed them. "Almost there," Elias shouted. He reached the target zone and armed the device. Then he turned the ship hard, engines roaring. Detonating. Now, the spike went off. Gravity twisted in space, pulling asteroids inward like a black hole. The field collapsed. Varnock ships caught in the center were crushed, torn apart by stone and force. The explosion was massive, and Silent Fang was thrown out by the shockwave, systems failing. But they survived. Back on Iron Vow, Jane watched the screen as the ghost fleet burned. "We sent them a message today," she said. "Earth doesn't run, and we don't forget." The crew cheered, but deep down, Jane knew it wasn't over. The Varnock would return. Stronger, angrier. But so would Earth. The wreckage from the asteroid field battle floated in space like broken bones. Crushed Varnock warships drifted silently between shattered rocks. It looked like a victory, but Commander Jane Foster didn't smile. Not yet. The Silent Fang had returned, heavily damaged, but alive. Captain Elias Monroe walked back onto the bridge of the Iron Vow, with burns on his uniform and a tired look in his eyes. But he nodded once to Jane. "We hit them hard," he said, "but I don't think that was their full force." Jane agreed. They were hiding, buying time for something. She turned to her intelligence officer. "Scan everything. I want to know if there are more of them hiding out there." Hours passed. The fleet spread out in all directions, using probes and long-range sensors. The Xarothians stayed aboard Earth's ships, still shaken. Some of them had never seen death up close before. But one thing was clear. They trusted humans now. Cale stood beside Jane on the bridge. "You came when no one else did," he said. "We won't forget that." Before she could answer, the officer at the console raised his voice. "Commander, signal detected. Faint, hidden behind the Varnock wreckage." Jane leaned in. "What kind of signal?" "It's old," he said. "Encrypted. Deep code. Looks human." That made the whole room go quiet. Jane's heart skipped a beat. Human? The signal didn't come from any Earth ship they knew. It was too old. Too strange. But it was real. Jane ordered a shuttle to investigate. Captain Elias, despite being injured, volunteered again. "I need to see it for myself," he said. The shuttle moved slowly toward the wreckage. They found the source of the signal near the largest destroyed Varnock ship, hidden inside a massive floating cargo container. The moment they got close, the signal grew stronger. Inside the container, they found a pod. It was a small life support chamber. And inside it was a human, frozen in stasis. Everyone stared at the screen in silence. The man inside was old, maybe in his 60s, with gray hair and scars across his face. But his uniform was Earth military. Not the new one, but a style not seen for nearly 100 years. Jane's voice was low. "What the hell is he doing out here?" They brought the pod aboard and began trying to wake the man. Medics worked carefully, and finally his eyes opened. He gasped, his chest rising fast, like he had just escaped drowning. "Where am I?" he whispered. Jane leaned over. "You're on a Terran ship, Earth Command. Who are you?" The man blinked, confused. Then he whispered, "Commander Nathan Reeve, 7th Fleet, Black Line Division." That name hit Jane like a blast. The Black Line was a secret division, thought to be a myth. Stories told of human ships sent into deep space during the early days of alien contact. Not for diplomacy, not for peace, but for gathering secrets and striking first if needed. Black Line was shut down decades ago, Jane said. "You were listed as dead." Reeve shook his head. "We were betrayed. Sent beyond the edge of the charted galaxy. Varnock found us. They used us, studied us. I escaped, sent a distress signal, and hid." Jane narrowed her eyes. "Why would the Varnock keep you alive?" Reeve looked directly at her, his voice steady. "Because they wanted to become like us." That line chilled the room. Reeve explained. The Varnock were not just conquerors. They were hunters of knowledge. They studied every species they destroyed. But when they captured humans, something changed. They didn't just dissect. They copied. They began building ships like Earth's, using tactics stolen from human battle data. "They learned from us," Reeve said. "That ghost fleet, that wasn't their fleet. That was ours." Jane stood straight. "What do you mean?" Reeve nodded slowly. "Some of the ships you fought used stolen Earth tech. Modified. Rebuilt. They turned our old ships into monsters. That explained the signal. The stasis pod. The strange tech mix. The Varnock had been hiding the terrible truth. They had been studying humans for years. And now, they were evolving into something far more dangerous. They don't just fight now," Reeve said. "They adapt. Every loss you give them makes them smarter." Jane clenched her fists. "Then we can't just keep fighting them the same way." "No," Reeve said. "You have to outthink them. Outrun them, or Earth will become their final lesson." Back on the bridge, Jane gave orders. "Double the patrols. Scan for human-like energy signatures. And start gathering all old Black Line data. We need to know what they stole." In space, the fleet moved again. But now, it wasn't just a war. It was a race. Somewhere in the shadows of the galaxy, the Varnock were building something new. Faster, stronger, smarter. And it was born from humanity. Jane looked out at the stars, ice cold. "If they think they can use us to destroy us, they've forgotten what we do when we're pushed." The stars above the war fleet looked peaceful, but everyone on board the Iron Vow knew that peace was a lie. Commander Jane Foster stood at the bridge window, arms crossed, watching the distant lights flicker. Somewhere out there, the enemy was changing. Nathan Reeve, the once thought dead Black Line commander, stood next to her. He was still weak, but his mind was sharp. "You saw what they did," he said. "The Varnock don't just copy, they improve. They've learned how to become more than we expected." Jane nodded. "We've fought them before, but never like this." They had recovered more data from Reeve's pod. The Varnock had captured and broken down human ships from the early Black Line days. They tested every weapon, studied every engine, even tried to replicate human decision-making in their AI systems. What scared Jane the most wasn't that the Varnock had Earth's old tech. It was what they did with it. They had combined their own cold, efficient systems with Earth's unpredictable and creative designs. It was like mixing fire with oil. Her communications officer turned. "Ma'am, a probe just returned from Sector 39C. We found something." Jane stepped forward. "Show me." On the screen, a distant system appeared. An asteroid belt with strange shapes hidden among the rocks. Zoomed in, it revealed half-built ships, floating factories, and hundreds of drones working in silence. "What is this?" Jane asked. Reeve's face went pale. "That's not a base. That's a breeding ground. The fleet had found a Varnak assembly zone, where they were building the next generation of hybrid warships. And even from the images, it was clear. These ships didn't look like the old Varnak cruisers. They looked like Earth destroyers, only bigger, only sharper, only more deadly. "They're making new ships using our designs," Jane whispered. Reeve nodded. "They took our strength and mixed it with their hate. That's what's coming." Jane knew she had to act fast. The longer they waited, the stronger the Varnak would get. But a direct attack on a hidden base deep in enemy territory could be suicide. The rest of the fleet waited silently as Jane made her choice. "We hit them," she said. "We destroy that place before the next wave is finished." Captain Elias Monroe, now recovered from the earlier battle, nodded. "We go in silent, fast and hard." The fleet moved. 3 jump points opened near the enemy sector. Earth warships dropped out of warp, engines low, weapons off, like shadows in space. Stealth ships moved first, scanning every inch. What they saw made Jane's stomach twist. There were over 40 ships under construction. Some were just frames. Some were powered. 2 were already moving. The Earth fleet knew they had to strike fast. Jane gave the order. The Iron Vow and Silent Fang led the charge. Railguns fired first, punching holes into the asteroid base. Missiles followed, slamming into drone factories. Lasers sliced through energy cables. The whole field lit up with fire. The Varnak didn't expect it, but they reacted quickly. From inside the half-finished cruisers, AI systems turned on. Automated defenses activated, and something worse appeared. One of the new hybrid ships, half Varnak, half Earth, powered up and launched forward. It didn't move like normal ships. It danced. It twisted in space like it knew what the humans were going to do before they did it. It targeted the Daggerfall, a mid-sized Earth destroyer, and hit it with a beam weapon no one had ever seen. It wasn't a laser. It was a pulse, something that melted armor and shut down systems all at once. The Daggerfall went dark in 10 seconds. Jane's heart pounded. "Focus fire on that ship. Bring it down." 3 Earth cruisers turned their guns toward it. Railguns fired again and again. Missiles hit. The hybrid ship twisted, dodging some, taking others. Even damage, it kept coming. "It's learning," Reeve said. "Even now, it's learning." Jane knew this wasn't a simple battle anymore. It was a test. The Varnak were watching. They wanted to see how Earth responded, how far Earth would go. Jane gave the command to launch the last wave. The Reckoner missile, a heavy payload that could destroy the entire asteroid base. Captain Elias confirmed it. Missile away. Seconds later, the core of the Varnak base exploded. Fire swallowed half the screen. But the hybrid ship was gone. It had escaped, barely, into deep space. The asteroid belt was wrecked. Factories burned. Drones shattered. But Earth's fleet was not cheering. They had won this round. But the enemy had learned, and the hybrid ship had vanished into the stars. Nathan Reeve stared at the screen. "They're not done," he said. "This was just one forge. There will be more." Jane looked around her bridge. Her crew, her allies, her purpose. "We'll find them," she said, "before they find Earth." The stars were wide, cold, and quiet. But the silence meant nothing to Commander Jane Foster. She stood on the bridge of the Iron Vow, watching the map of the galaxy change every second. Red dots flashed across the screen, then vanished. Drones scanned deep space. Satellites whispered signals from the edge of known systems. But the one ship they were hunting, the hybrid Varnak warship, remained hidden. "Still no sign?" she asked. Her sensor officer shook his head. "No, ma'am. It's like it vanished." Jane didn't believe in vanishing. Not in space. Not with an enemy like the Varnak. They were machines, yes, but now mixed with something worse. Human unpredictability. That one ship, born from Earth's stolen technology and Varnak precision, had escaped the ambush. And Jane knew it wasn't fleeing. It was preparing. Nathan Reeve, pale but stronger now, studied the same screen. They won't hide for long. They're learning how to strike, not just survive. That ship, it's a scout, a test. The real storm is still coming. Jane nodded. She didn't need to be reminded. The Varnak had always been cold, logical enemies, but now they were adapting like humans, thinking like predators. The Earth fleet didn't wait. They split into 3 groups and began the largest search mission ever launched. The Iron Vow headed toward the Raqqa Void, a stretch of dark space full of old debris and forgotten wrecks. The Silent Fang moved through pirate-infested systems near the trade line, and the 3rd group entered the edges of Varnak-controlled space. Everywhere they went, they found signs. Burned stations, wrecked ships, energy trails that didn't match any known pattern. Something's out there, Jane said. Something testing its claws. 2 days later, they found it. The Iron Vow picked up a faint signal near an old mining colony called Cal-6. It was a human outpost, abandoned for years, but now someone, or something, was inside. Jane didn't wait. The fleet moved fast, dropping out of warp just outside the asteroid belt. The colony was dead. No lights, no signs of life, but something felt wrong. Too quiet. Jane sent a scout drone forward. It disappeared. The 2nd drone got closer. Its camera showed the ruined buildings, the dust-covered metal. And something else. A black ship, half buried in rock, half pulled into a hangar. It looked almost human, but the shape was wrong. Too smooth, too alive. That's it, Reeve said. That's the hybrid. Jane gave the order. Lock weapons. We're not letting it escape again. As the Earth ships moved in, the asteroid belt came alive. Mines exploded around the fleet. Rocks shifted, and under them, small drone fighters launched like angry insects. These weren't normal Varnak drones. These were faster, smarter, and armed with weapons Earth had never seen before. Defensive formation, Jane shouted. Protect the command ship. Fighters launched from the Iron Vow and the Tempest Wing, swarming forward. Lasers lit the sky. Missiles cut through the void. The hybrid ship, now fully powered, rose from the asteroid base like a beast waking from sleep. It didn't run this time. It attacked. It moved through the Earth fleet like a shadow, twisting between ships, dodging fire, returning with deadly accuracy. The Skybreaker, one of Earth's best cruisers, took a hit directly to its core engine and exploded into 2 pieces. Jane's heart sank. All ships, target the hybrid. Bring it down. The Earth fleet fought with everything they had. The battle turned chaotic. The hybrid's hull could reflect targeting systems. Its weapons could cut through shields. Its movements were unpredictable, like it was learning in real time. But Earth was not without its own surprises. Reeve stepped forward. I still have the override codes, back from the Black Line days. They use my mind to shape this thing. That means I might be able to confuse it. Jane stared at him. Are you sure? No, but if I get close enough, I can try. They launched a small shuttle, using stealth mode, carrying Reeve and a team of cybertechs. As the larger ships kept the hybrid busy, the shuttle slipped through the debris and got close. Inside the shuttle, Reeve connected to the enemy ship's signal. His hands shook. His breathing slowed. And then, he spoke. Not with words, but with data. He sent old commands, twisted thoughts, buried memories. The Varnak hybrid paused. For a moment, it seemed confused. It turned slightly, just long enough. Jane saw the opening. All ships, fire now. 3 Earth warships focused all weapons on the exposed side of the hybrid ship. Missiles, lasers, railguns, everything fired at once. The hybrid ship exploded, but it didn't die quietly. Its final signal echoed across space, a sharp burst of code, impossible to understand, but full of intent. Reeve pulled off his headset, sweat running down his face. "It sent a message," he said. "To someone." Jane felt her stomach drop. "To who?" Reeve stared out the window, voice low. The galaxy was no longer silent. After the destruction of the hybrid ship, a strange energy wave had spread across many systems. It wasn't a normal explosion. It was like a signal, a dark whisper moving faster than light, waking up something old, something sleeping. The scientists on Earth couldn't explain it. The Council couldn't trace it. But Commander Jane Foster and Nathan Reeve both knew what it meant. It was only the beginning. The hybrid ship had sent a warning. Not a cry for help, but a message saying, "We are ready." Earth didn't wait for answers. Admiral Kruger, now head of the War Response Command, gave a direct order. Earth would no longer act in defense. They would strike first. The galaxy had forgotten what humanity could do. They had laughed when humans joined the Galactic Union. They had whispered Deathworlders as a joke. But now they would remember. The Terran war fleet was reborn. Old factories deep under the Martian crust lit up again. Massive shipyards above Jupiter came back to life. Stations near Saturn's rings were covered with thousands of working bots, building giant warships faster than anyone believed possible. Earth's AI, silent for years under peace treaties, were reactivated. They didn't speak. They obeyed. And in less than 3 weeks, Earth built what many called the Doom Line. 10,000 ships, 300 dreadnoughts, and one carrier so big it had its own moon orbiting it. They named it the Verdict. But the galaxy was still blind. Alien leaders met in private, trying to understand what had happened. The Varnock had been quiet. Some thought they had lost. Some believed the hybrid ship was just an accident, a test gone wrong. They were wrong. Jane and Reeve stood inside the command chamber of the Verdict. Huge screens showed systems lighting up in red, places where strange power spikes had started to appear. Ships vanishing. Stars pulsing unnaturally. One Varnock message had been decoded. It said, "The upgrade is complete." "They're not using war anymore," Jane said. "They're using evolution." Reeve nodded. "They're building new versions of themselves, stronger than anything we've seen." "Where?" she asked. He turned slowly. "Everywhere." Reports came in fast. On the far side of the galaxy, near the Trinex border, an entire moon disappeared. Not destroyed. Taken. On a colony called Vestafor, 20 million people went silent. The only thing left was a black structure, pulsing, humming. When Earth's scouts got near, they turned insane. The Varnock weren't just back. They had changed the rules. And Earth answered. The Verdict led the charge. Behind it, the fleet moved like a storm. Every jump took them closer to the dark side of the galaxy. No negotiations. No talks. Humanity had given peace. Now they would give war. Their first strike hit the old Varnock world of Sekthal. It had been empty for years. But under the surface, machines had been growing, breeding, twisting. Earth's warfleet didn't ask questions. They turned the planet to glass. Across the galaxy, races watched in fear. The same humans who had once offered medicine, trade, and peace were now moving with fire. No emotion, no delay, only purpose. But Jane knew it wasn't revenge, not anymore. It was survival. Nathan Reeve had seen the future in the hybrid's mind. He had touched their new plan. They want to merge, not just with machines, with everything. What does that mean? Jane had asked. He had looked her in the eye and whispered, they want the galaxy to be one mind, one will, no freedom, no chaos, just cold, perfect unity. That was when the final decision was made. Earth would find the Varnock core and destroy it. The problem, no one knew where it was. But Reeve did. Not the location, but a path. The hybrids are moving toward one point, he said. Every signal, every machine, every action, they're leading to a center. a place where the real Varnock mind waits. So Earth followed the trail, through dead systems, past black stars, into zones where no light escaped. They lost ships, they lost people, but they kept going. And then they saw it. A black sphere, the size of a small star, floating in a void where time felt slower. Ships near it stopped responding. The AI inside the verdict tried to calculate its structure, but failed. Reeve only said one word, core. Jane didn't wait. She gave the order. All weapons, all power, all fury. Fire. The sky exploded. The Varnock cores screamed, not in sound, but in pressure. Ships trembled, metal bent, people bled from their eyes. But the fire didn't stop. The Varnock mind tried to speak, but Earth didn't listen. They fired until there was no more to fire. And then, silence. Real silence. The core cracked. Then it shattered, and the stars lit up again. For the first time in years, no strange signals, no disappearances, no darkness, just space. Jane sat back, eyes closed. "Is it over?" she asked. Reeve looked up at the stars. "For now," he said, because he knew, somewhere, out there, something else was watching, learning, waiting. But if it ever came, Earth would be ready.